Expressions of popular piety have much to teach us. For those who are capable of reading them, they are a locus theologicus, which demands our attention, especially at a time when we are looking to the new evangelization. Buenos dias, soy Carmen Nanko-Fernández, the director of the Hispanic Theology and Ministry program here at the Catholic Theological Union and an associate professor of Hispanic Theology and Ministry. One of the treasures of Evangelii Gaudium is the attention that Francis gives to popular piety. Look at the words that he uses. Popular piety is the starting point of healing and liberation. It's an evangelizing power. It's the work of the Holy Spirit. It's part of the missionary activity of the people of God. Popular piety is the locus theologicus. In other words, the starting point and place of doing theology. So what's popular piety? Well, it's the faith of the people. It's the expressions of faith in the home and in the streets. It's altacitos and fiestas, religious processions, via crucis. It's moms blessing kids on the way to school, and young people asking for their cars to be blessed so that the presence of God accompanies them. It's the family praying the rosary. It's the Mexican Days of the Dead. It's the practices of ordinary people in the ordinariness of daily living. It's the affirmation of God accompanying us in our daily. Where does it come from? Well, it's rooted in expressions that are ancient. In the case of Las Americas, it comes from the intersection of Spanish, African, and indigenous world religious views. In evangelization, it's rooted in a use of the artistic, the kinetic, and the creative. Art, image, dance, and theater. How does Francis come by his interest in popular piety? Well, first of all, Francis is from Latin America, so as an Argentinian, it would have been part of his daily lived experience. But his theological influence comes from a man who was his mentor, a Jesuit by the name of Juan Carlos Scarnone. And Scarnone developed what he called a teología de pueblo, in other words, a theology of the people. Scarnone was a liberation theologian. And like other theologians from the liberation strand, he took seriously the socioeconomic conditions of Latin America, conditions that needed to be addressed if people were to escape and overcome and resist poverty. But unlike the liberation theologians of his time, Scarnone was part of a theological body that thought that culture too could be a site of resistance, that culture too, popular and religious culture of the people, offered possibilities for liberation. This is a strand that gets picked up in the United States by Latino theologians, folks like Virgilio Elizondo, Orlando Espín, Roberto Goizueta, Nancy Pineda Madrid, Gil Romero, Jean-Pierre Ruiz. It says that popular practices by ordinary people are indeed the places of doing theology. Popular theology is a context, it's the content, it's the source and the ground for where theologizing comes from. The expressions of faith of ordinary people trying to survive las luchas, the struggles of their daily living, of resisting and of communicating and passing on, in other words, traditioning the faith of the ancestors to their children. Let's take a look at this example of the altacito, an altar that's found in a home or in an office or even in a dorm room. And this particular altacito commemorates those who have died that were close to me, friends, mentors, and family members. It includes a calavera. A calavera is a skull that reminds that death is the great equalizer. Whether you're a bishop or campesino, rich or poor, death is the great equalizer. Yet it also pokes fun at death. It says, death, you have no sting. Why? Because of the promise of the resurrection. An altacito is a way of remembering and celebrating life. Pastorally, it facilitates grieving. It's the source of comfort. At the same time, it also functions in a catechetical way. In other words, it helps families to tradition their children into what our faith holds dear on matters of life and death. Theologically, it affirms the communion of the saints. In other words, death is not the end. And even after death, we remain in relationship with the santos and the santas who have preceded us. It is an affirmation of our connectivity. It hints at the promise and the power of the resurrection. It also signals that in my house, or in my space, or in my place, I am accompanied by God in my daily living. Through popular religion, theology is done by ordinary people in the ordinary spaces of our daily living. And as Francis said, for those of us who are capable of reading them, there is much here that is said about God.